Alright guys, let's talk about interval training. So the first thing we need to do is define interval training, right? Interval training is exercise with repeated bouts of high intensity activities alternated with low intensity recovery. So intensity is the key word here. Intensity, intensity, intensity. Interval starts with I, intensity starts with I. So interval training does not require changing your activity in any way, right? We're not changing from squats to jump rope to jumping jacks to whatever. We're doing one activity and changing the intensity. So maybe we're walking and then running, or sprinting and then jogging, or swimming at different paces, right? Same activity, different intensity. Anyone can do interval training, right? It could be walking and walking faster, walking and walking faster. And this is not new. People have been doing this since, well, forever, but it was actually recorded that it was used in a program in 1912. Now, circuit training is different. So circuit training involves moving from an exercise to a different exercise to a different exercise, usually with minimal rest, right? Maybe using different apparatus, which is a fantastic technique. It just has a different purpose than interval training, and we'll talk more about this later. But for example, you could be doing, okay, I'm going to do jump squats, and then I'm going to do push-ups, and then I'm going to jump rope, and, you know, and then just repeat that. Jump squats, push-ups, jump rope. Squats, push-ups, jump rope. And that would be circuit training. Cross training, on the other hand, is a technique that's used to reduce the risk of injury, help strengthen muscle groups that we're not usually using, and to make our training less boring, right? So I'm going to use runners as an example because runners love running. They just want to run all the time. They don't want to do anything else. And usually, if you know any runners, they have maybe shin splints at some point or plantar fasciitis and that sort of injury, like a chronic injury. Whereas if maybe instead of running 5 or 6 days a week, you took a day and did swimming instead, or did some weight training, or something different. So your focus remains running, but taking a day or two to do something different in order to reduce the risk of injury. Particularly for runners, swimming is great because running has repeated impact, just over and over and over and over again, the same motion. So something like swimming could be great because you're taking the impact off the joints, you're strengthening the upper body muscles with swimming in a completely different way. And it may be a little bit less boring. Now, while we're talking about cross training, we just have to talk about shoes for a minute because this is definitely a pet peeve of mine, right? If you go to any shoe store, like go to DSW, go to Kohl's, go to wherever, 90% of the shoes are running shoes, right? But 90% of people don't run. Most people don't run. If you are using your shoes to go to the gym or to take a CrossFit class or, you know, do any of these activities that these people are doing here, you should not be wearing running shoes, particularly this, right? Running shoes are made to go forward, right? Heel strike, toe off, heel strike, toe off. They're not meant to go side to side and do these other activities. So cross-training shoes are really, it's important to buy shoes that match the activity that you're doing. Now, what is HIIT? High intensity interval training, right? So we're going to alternate high intensity exercise with rest periods. And in order to create a program, we're going to need to pay attention to all of these little things, right? So how many bouts are we going to do? What's the intensity of the bout, right? So what percentage of my VO2 max or maximum heart rate or RPE or whatever? How long is each bout going to last? How much recovery? What type of recovery? Am I just going to be still or am I going to do a lower intensity recovery? How many sessions per week? So you can't just say I'm doing HIIT, like for case studies or, you know, program for your clients or yourself. You can't just say, oh, I do HIIT. That's really not very descriptive at all. You would need to explain, well, I'm doing this type of HIIT, my ratio is this, I'm doing this many bouts. Okay, you need to be much more specific with it. Now, is HIIT effective? I think we all know, yeah, right? Lots of studies referred to in your reading. I'm just going to highlight a couple. So we know that HIIT can yield a broad range of physiological adaptations, sometimes in less time than the high volume continuous exercise. Yay! It can increase VO2 max, right? It can improve stroke volume. It can increase left ventricle heart mass, right? And this is important because we remember that our left ventricle squeezes the blood out and sends it to the whole body. So having a really strong left ventricle is a wonderful adaptation. And the number one reason that people say that they don't work out is that they don't have time, right? I'm sure you've heard this. I hear it all the time. I'm too busy, can't make the time, right? So if we're able to give people an opportunity to get good results and good physiological adaptations in less time, this is definitely a win. So yes, time, number one excuse. HIIT can be done in less time, right? You can burn more calories, right? So if we're concerned with weight loss, HIIT might be something to investigate. We may create a higher EPOC, right? Sport performance improvement, and this one's big because as we've discussed, if you are training in lacrosse or tennis or football or soccer or, that type of sport, steady state exercise is not going to actually help you improve your performance in the sport. These sports are stop, start, change direction. They are not run in one direction at the same pace. So you need to train in a way that actually relates to the sport that you play. More benefits. There's more. It's possible that you can maintain your lean body mass, so you're able to stay anabolic and recruit type 2 fibers with some HIIT that you may not be able to recruit with sort of a long, slow distance type training. So this is very appealing to those who are concerned that cardio is going to affect their strength gains. Possibly HIIT would be a better decision, a better choice for those people. We can increase the size and number of mitochondria. Yay! More factories to create more ATP. And HIIT has even been used in special populations. So those who are dealing with diabetes can use HIIT to decrease insulin resistance. It's cool. Now, there are some disadvantages, right? Generally speaking, we want to have a cardio base before we start HIIT training. We only want to do HIIT 2 to 3 times a week because HIIT intensity is so high. Your body has to recover before you can do it again. If you have a HIIT workout that then you try again the next day, if you can repeat the same workout the next day, it wasn't high enough. It wasn't HIIT, right? So HIIT involves working so hard that you need to actually have time before your next workout. HIIT will not exclusively help train for endurance events. Well, right, if you're training for a marathon, you're probably going to incorporate HIIT into your training sessions, but it is not exclusively going to help you be a good marathon runner. And last but not least, some people just don't like working hard, right? It's just too hard, it's unpleasant, they don't want to do it. So, you may have to deal with that with some of your future clients. So bottom line here, we're not going to choose. We're not choosing between HIIT and steady state. We're going to do them both, okay? There are good reasons to incorporate both in your training prescription. We're going to incorporate a couple of interval sessions and a couple of steady state sessions for almost everyone. So now, how do I HIIT? Okay, I decided I want to do it. Now how? How do I do it? Well, if you play a sport, your training should mimic the sport, okay? You need to figure out a ratio of work to rest. So there are so many protocols here. They exist using 2 to 1. So for example, Tabata, 20 seconds on, 10 seconds off, 2 to 1. It could be 1 to 5. It could be beyond. So a good place to start if we're just general population kind of interested in fitness might be something like 1 to 3. So you might work as hard as you can for 30 seconds. Maybe that's running, maybe it's an elliptical, maybe it's doing some other exercise. It could be karaoke, shuffles, skipping, it could be burpees, whatever, for 30 seconds, and then walk or jog for 90 seconds. so that you have some recovery before you then start your next bout. And rest intervals vary by protocol as to whether it's complete rest or light exercise. Now, there are so many different types of interval training. I'm just going to touch on a few. And you need to keep up with your reading in this area because new research is coming out all the time. All the time. So you need to keep reading and keep your eyes open, go to conferences, right? For example, I mean, I've learned about Bangsbo, HVIT, right, in conferences that I've attended. So in this industry, it's really important to keep up to date with your information. All right, so Tabata. Now, here's another pet peeve of mine, right? Almost every gym now has some sort of Tabata class, all right? Now, Tabata is more than just saying, oh, I'm going to work for 20 seconds and rest for 10, work for 20 and rest for 10. If you want the results from Tabata, you need to do Tabata. So here's the protocol, right? A Tabata workout is an interval training cycle of 20 seconds at maximum intensity, followed by 10 seconds of rest, repeated without pause 8 times in 4 minutes. That is a Tabata, okay? Dr. Tabata and his team did the research in 1996, so it's really not new at all. He began his work with speed skaters. The most famous study was done with professional cyclists, okay? Now, because these are professional, hardcore athletes, when they did their Tabatas, they were working at 170% of VO2 max. That is not something you and I can do. We can't really repeat this exact protocol. All right, these are hardcore athletes. So these people, these subjects, after 6 weeks, showed a 28% increase in anaerobic capacity and a 14% increase in VO2 max. That's huge. That's absolutely huge. And it showed that HIIT actually improves both anaerobic and aerobic body systems. Right? Now, I can't go to a class and do 20 seconds of crunches, take 10-second break, 20 seconds of crunches, take 10-second break, and expect to have these results. If you want to have these results, you have to actually follow the protocol, right? So a lot of these gyms have hour-long classes that are called Tabata, and it'll be like, okay, bicep curls for 20 seconds, rest for 10, bicep curls for 20 seconds, rest for 10. And you know what? If that's fun for people, that's fine. But it isn't Tabata. Sprint interval training. So this kind of is the opposite in a sense. In Tabata, we have incomplete rest because we work for 20, we rest for 10. Work for 20, rest for 10. So by the time you get to like 4, 5, 6 bout, you're like, oh my gosh, this is so hard. I feel like I'm exhausted, right? Sprint interval training, we're kind of going the other way. We are going to do 4 to 6 sprints, okay, lasting 30 seconds, interspersed with 4.5 minutes of light exercise. Wow, right? Totally the opposite. So the goal here is you're going to run a 30-second sprint as fast as you can. And you're going to rest long enough that when you repeat that bout, you can do it at the same speed. You can repeat that performance. So you're going to sprint 30 seconds, however far you get. You're going to walk or rest. You're going to sprint again, and you want to reach that same distance. And then you want to be able to do this 4 to 6 times. Okay? So here we're talking about repeating the performance. You want that same performance every bout. In Tabata, that's not happening. By the time you get to 5, 6, 7, 8, your performance is suffering. Your effort, it feels very challenging, right? Your effort feels very challenging, but your performance is not the same. You're not performing the same amount of work in that 20 seconds. Fartlek is a Swedish term that means speed play, all right? My daughter's favorite movie is Princess Bride, so of course I have to use this image. It can be effective in improving both speed and endurance. Fartlek running involves varying the pace throughout the run. So it's much less structured than a lot of the other protocols. I mean, you can go out for a run, you go a little faster, you go a little slower, go up a hill, go a little faster, go a little slower, kind of just intuitively. It doesn't have to be done on a track. It can be done on a cross-country course. It feels much more flexible and not as demanding as some of the other protocols. Turbulence training, just for a little change of pace. This is maybe a little bit less of a Google Scholar type training and more of like a just Google or YouTube, right? So turbulence training uses a combination of resistance and interval training to, quote, burn fat, right? So it's actually kind of circuit and interval together, which is actually, you know, it's a really good idea. And these fat burning and muscle building workouts can be done from home. So this is appealing to a lot of our clients, maybe especially right now. I mean, we're kind of dealing with this whole COVID-19 situation. None of us can go to the gym. We're all working out from home. So this type of a workout could be very helpful. Bangs bow. So this is known especially in football environments. It's also known as 30-20-10. So basically you're going to work out gently for like 30 seconds and then moderately for 20 seconds and then all out for 10. And then you're just going to repeat that. And you're going to repeat it and you're going to repeat it and you're going to repeat it, usually maybe 5 times. You might take a 2-minute recovery and then you might do it again. So to use running, because it's the easiest example, I'm going to jog for 30 seconds. I'm going to run for 20. I'm going to sprint for 10. Jog 30, run 20, sprint for 10, and repeat that over and over again. Now, something to pay attention to, this article is in Canvas for you, right? So make sure you take a look at it. And it also is a good review of the energy systems that we've already discussed. So it's a great article to look at. Take home. Never confuse maximal performance with maximal effort. They're very different. Right? So looking back at what I've said about Tabata and SIT, okay? Tabata, you are putting in your maximal effort. There is no doubt about it. You are working as hard as you feel you can, but your performance degrades, right, over time. Every time you're doing less work, right? As opposed to your sprint interval training where your performance should stay about the same, all right? These are different protocols with different purposes. It's not that they're bad or good, they have different purposes. And the thing you need to look out for, like traditionally in a lot of gyms, what's happening is high volume interval training as opposed to HIIT. So people are going into class and they think they're doing HIIT, but if you watch the class and you're actually tracking performance, by the time they get to like 30 minutes, 40 minutes, it's obvious that the performance is degrading. The technique is terrible. You're not getting the same speed. Okay, so in this case, they're doing HVIT. They're not doing HIIT. And is that bad? Not necessarily bad, but you just need to understand what that is and help people avoid injuries, because doing lots of volume is going to lead to more overuse injuries, especially because people feel like, I don't know, like, oh, I'm so tough. I do interval training workouts every day. And they're never completely recovered, right? You may, maybe you're like this. You do an interval training workout on Monday, you do interval training workout on Tuesday, and then you do, I don't know, body pump on Wednesday, and then something else. So people are never recovering. They're constantly feeling partially sore, which they feel is great. I have so many people come up to me and they're like, oh, that was such a great class. I was sore until Friday. And I'm like, oh, okay, great. I don't know how to respond to that, because being sore is not necessary to make progress in your fitness journey. It should not be a goal. So we kind of need to change the mindset out there a little bit. But keep an eye for you, for your clients, that you're not just doing volume for the sake of volume, right? You're not just doing volume for the sake of volume. You want to make sure that you have a plan and that you have included enough recovery in your plan. Okay, a couple little, I'd like to revisit a couple of these little concepts that we've touched on. But now that we're experts on energy systems and interval training, let's just go back and take a quick look at them. EPOC, excess post-exercise oxygen consumption. So if we look at this, this is our light exercise and this is heavy exercise, right? So the first few moments of exercise rely on anaerobic sources. We know that because the aerobic system really takes about 2 minutes to kick into gear, right, to become prominent. So we have a little bit of an oxygen debt here, that's the red, and oxygen debt here, that's this red. Okay? Then, when our workout is complete, the body must return to homeostasis. So, that's this orange here. So, if we're doing light exercise, it takes this much time and energy to return to homeostasis. This is our epoch. Okay? Now, this takes energy. It requires energy to return our body to homeostasis. So, while this is happening, we are burning calories aerobically because we are not exercising. So we are at low intensity while our body is returning to homeostasis, right? Now, if we did a heavy exercise bout, you can see that our epoch is much larger. So it takes more energy for us to return to homeostasis, more time and more calories and more energy. So, because intense exercise takes the body further away, it takes longer to recover. So during epoch, these are some of the things that are happening in our body, right? At first, our body is resynthesizing some of these metabolites, right? And it's replenishing. All right. The slow component, we're doing things like returning our body temperature to normal, getting our hormones back to normal, replenishing muscle glycogen. Hopefully we're eating, right? So we can give our body the fuel to do that. So sometimes people sort of use this as a selling point, particularly for weight loss, right? Like, oh, the afterburn, you're burning calories while you're not even working out. So this is a great thing, all right? So afterburn training, woohoo, look at all that red. And there's something to be said for that, sure, right? We would love to burn calories while we're not doing anything. The more intense the workout is, the more calories we'll burn afterwards. And this could be a way to help our clients wrap their mind around doing more intense workouts than they're used to. Now, it's not magic, right? So if we're trying to lose weight and we're being very like black and white about it, we need to burn 3,500 calories to lose a pound. So maybe every workout, if we're doing 3 intense workouts a week, maybe we're increasing our epoch by 100 calories or 150 calories, right? So is that going to create tons and tons of weight loss right away? No, it's not. But let's say over the course of a year, those calories add up to a 3-pound weight loss. To me, that is amazing because the average American gains a pound or 2 of fat every year after the age of 25. So if we're able to take our clients and have them lose 3 pounds of fat over a year just by increasing their activity a little bit, right? Increasing their intensity so that their afterburn is greater, and the afterburn adds up to losing 3 pounds a year instead of gaining 2, that's a huge win. And now it doesn't fit into our typical like American, like, oh my gosh, I want results right now. I need to see results in like 2 weeks or else I'm going to quit, right? It doesn't fit into that little paradigm, but long term, it can definitely add up and help quite a bit. All right, let's look at our fat burning zone, right? So we walk into the gym, we're a general population member who's maybe interested in losing a little weight. I get on the elliptical and I see this guide, right? Or even, you know, all of those machines have like programs, right? You can choose like fat loss program or whatever. So of course, if I want to lose weight, I'm walking into the gym. I don't have all this amazing knowledge that you guys have. I'm just, you know, regular Joe. I choose my fat burn program. So it's going to keep me working at a very low intensity. Is that the most efficient way to lose weight? No, it's not. Absolutely not. Okay? So at a lower percentage, the body burns a lower or a greater percentage of fat. Okay? So at rest, like right now, you guys are probably seated watching this amazing screencast. You're probably burning close to 60% fat, 40% carbs. And we're not going to talk about protein because generally speaking, it doesn't really add a lot to our, it's not really a big energy source for us, we hope. So, the best way to burn a high percentage of fat is to go home and go to bed. The lower the intensity, the higher the percentage of fat. Okay, well, let's take this logic to, you know, let's take it to the logical end here. That would mean that if my goal were to burn the highest percentage of fat, I should sleep like all the time. Now, the problem with that, of course, is that when I'm sleeping, I don't burn very many calories, right? I don't burn very many calories when I'm sleeping. So how am I going to lose weight if all I'm doing is sleeping? Okay, so even though I burn a greater percentage of carbs as the intensity of the activity increases, the number of calories you burn is significantly increased. And in many cases, you'll even burn more calories from fat, even though the percentage is lower. So let's look at some actual numbers, right? This is one study, right? The graph or chart from one study. If we look at the energy balance equation, right, that says we have to burn more calories than we take in if we want to lose weight. And in a very black and white sense, that means that about 30 calories is equal to 1 pound. Okay, so if I want to lose weight, the most important goal is to burn calories, regardless of where they come from, carbs or fat. Really doesn't matter. In addition, as we just discussed, after intense exercise, our body will need to repair and replenish those calories, right? That energy is primarily aerobic and therefore uses a high percentage of fat, okay? But now let's look at the specific numbers here. Let's look here. So we're working at 30 minutes, 65% versus 85%. So the total calories burned in 30 minutes is 146 versus 206, right? The fat calories expended, 73 fat calories versus 82 fat calories. So working at a higher intensity, we burned more calories from fat than we did at a low intensity, right? Now, if we're looking at the percentage of fat, we go from 50 to basically 40. So high intensity, we're burning a lower percentage of fat, but more fat calories and more calories overall. So this is clearly what we want to do. We do not want to purposely work out at a lower intensity in the hopes of burning more fat and losing weight. We want to encourage our clients to work out at the higher intensity range, right? Not deliberately hold themselves back and work out at low intensity. Now, low intensity workouts can be great, right? They're great for recovery. They're great if we're injured. They're great if we're, if we're new to exercise. So it's not that low intensity workouts are terrible. It's just that they're not great for losing weight. We want our clients to work out as hard as they're capable of, or at least, right, alternate a harder workout with an easier workout, a harder workout with an easier workout. Because for weight loss, we want to burn calories, calories, calories. And final concept. What is lactate threshold? Well, it is the point in exercise where lactate production exceeds removal. So right now, we have a nice little balance, right? You are creating a little bit of lactate, not a lot, because you're not working at a high intensity right now. And your body is clearing that lactate and using it for fuel, right? However, there will come a time as we increase the intensity of our workout, lactate levels will increase, everything's fine, and then all of a sudden, zoop, they go up exponentially because our body is not able to buffer and transport that lactate to other places and keep that balance, right? So your lactate threshold is basically right at the point where you can, it's like the maximal intensity that you can work out at but maintain for like 20 minutes. Okay, because once you cross over that lactate threshold, you'll kind of basically hit a wall and you won't be able to continue for very long. And this may be the most consistent predictor of performance in many events, endurance events, and sporting events. Okay, we want to train by incorporating exercises at high intensity. Those of you who are track athletes, I'm sure, have done tempo training and kind of feels kind of miserable, right? Because you're not at a race pace exactly. You're not at a nice, slow, steady pace. You're like right under that lactate threshold. It's uncomfortable. So you're pushing yourself in that uncomfortable way for a period of time, maybe 20 minutes or so, in order to raise that lactate threshold so that you can perform at a higher intensity for a longer period of time. That is the end goal with that. The end. There ends interval training. So please go back and review the materials in your mod, right, in your module, and obviously contact me with any questions that you might have. See you soon.